My wife is gone. Take her back. The nurse, looking between him and the tiny infant in her arms, shook her head. Sir, this is your child. There's nowhere else for her to go. Reluctantly, he took the baby, but as he looked down at her, resentment filled his heart. You took my wife from me. I hate you, he whispered bitterly. In the heart of Obeid town, Kola and Olabasai had a love that was admired by all. Kola was a respected farmer, and Iridi was a successful trader. They met at the market, and from that first exchange, a deep bond grew, blending their lives and dreams. In the neighborhood, Olabasai's love story with Kola was often the talk of the town. People marveled at how deeply Kola cherished his wife, always treating her with kindness and care, looking out for her well-being, and openly expressing his admiration. He was a hardworking man who put his wife's happiness above everything, and it showed in every gesture, every conversation. Neighbors often whispered about it, calling it a love that was rare to see. One evening, as the sun set and Olabasai was returning from the market, two women from the neighborhood, Folik and Funmaleo, called her over. Both had watched the couple's relationship over the years, and their admiration had only grown. They greeted her with warm smiles and gentle curiosity in their eyes. Olabasai, a beg, tell us oh. Folik began, leaning closer with a mischievous grin. What did you use for this, your husband? The way he loves you is something else. Every time we see you two, it's like a scene from a movie. Funmaleo nodded eagerly, adding, Abi, men like Kola are raro. How did you get him to love you so much? There must be something you're doing that we don't know about. Olabasai chuckled, surprised by the attention. She shook her head, smiling shyly. My sisters, there's no secret, oh. I didn't use anything. Kola is just a good man, and we've both tried to love each other genuinely. Maybe it's that we always listen to each other and put our family first, but truly, there's no charm or trick. The two women exchanged a knowing look, still not fully convinced, but appreciating her modesty. Well, whatever it is, Olabasai, Funmaleo said with a wink, we pray your love only grows. It's truly inspiring. May we all find love like yours. With a smile, Olabasai thanked them and continued on her way home. When Olabasai became pregnant, Kola's joy knew no bounds. He pampered her endlessly, ensuring she did no work, taking over even the smallest household chores. He dreamt of the day he would hold his child, whom he was sure would bring even more joy into their home. But fate had different plans. One stormy night, Olabasai went into labor. Kola rushed her to the hospital. In the tense hours of waiting, Kola was consumed by a mix of hope and worry as he prayed fervently for his wife, Olabasai, to deliver their child safely. He had been eagerly anticipating the arrival of their baby boy, but the uncertainty of childbirth weighed heavily on him. When the doctor finally approached him, Kola's heart raced. Congratulations, the doctor said with a solemn smile. Your wife has given birth to a healthy baby boy. Kola felt a surge of relief and joy, but before he could fully exhale, the doctor's expression turned grave. There's something else, the doctor continued. Your wife was actually carrying twins, a boy and a girl. But because of complications with the second birth, she is in critical condition. Kola was stunned. Twins? How could this be? The last scan they had done had shown only a single baby boy. He hadn't been prepared for this unexpected turn, and the news of his wife's critical state hit him like a tidal wave. In his desperation, Kola's priorities narrowed to one. Doctor, please, I don't care about the other twin. Just save my wife. I'll do anything, pay anything please, just bring her back to me. Unable to contain his anguish, Kola broke down in tears, pleading with God. If you save my wife, I promise I'll serve you forever. His voice cracked as he poured out his heart in prayer, clinging to any hope he could find. But after what felt like an eternity, the doctor returned, his expression etched with sorrow. I'm so sorry, Mr. Kola. We tried everything we could, but we lost her. Your wife didn't make it. However, the twins are healthy and doing well. Kola's world shattered in an instant. The weight of the doctor's words sank into him, leaving him feeling hollow and numb. His beloved Olavasai was gone, and though he had 2 new lives to care for, the loss felt insurmountable. He collapsed in tears, screaming, feeling devastated, caught between love, loss, and the responsibility to carry on without her. Kola's grief turned quickly to anger, and he blamed the tiny baby girl, Ademoyetv, for his loss. Overcome with bitterness, he picked up his son, Ademoyetv, leaving the baby girl in the hospital. The morning after the tragedy, a nurse arrived at Kola's door with the little girl he had refused to acknowledge. "Olga, you forgot your daughter at the hospital yesterday," she gently reminded him, holding out the baby. But Kola's eyes darkened as he refused. "I don't care about her. She's the reason my wife is gone. Take her back." The nurse, looking between him and the tiny infant in her arms, shook her head. "Sir, this is your child. There's nowhere else for her to go." Reluctantly, he took the baby, but as he looked down at her, resentment filled his heart. "You took my wife from me. I hate you," he whispered bitterly. As Ademoyetv and her twin brother Ademoyetv began to grow, Kola's anger only deepened. While Ademoyetv was showered with affection, gifts, and his father's attention, Ademoyetv was deprived of affection and love. If both twins cried, Kola would tend only to Ademoyetv, letting Ademoyetv's cries echo unanswered. She was often left hungry, watching as her brother was fed first and best, while she was given scraps or left to go without. By the time she was old enough to run errands and do chores, Ademoyetv had become more of a maid in her own home than a daughter. She cleaned, cooked, and catered to every whim of her brother and father. Meanwhile, Ademoyetv enjoyed a carefree life, spoiled with shopping trips and fun outings. Even at school, Ademoyetev's homework and assignments often became her responsibility, as he demanded that she solve them for him. He, too, had adopted his father's disdain, treating Ademoyetv like a servant, ordering her to do his laundry and blaming her when things went wrong. Kola's words were the heaviest blow. "You're the reason your mother is dead," he would remind her coldly whenever she failed to please him. "You'll suffer because of it." Every time, Ademoyetv would retreat to a corner of the house, tears spilling as she absorbed the blame for a tragedy she couldn't understand. One evening, as the sun set and a quiet calm settled over the neighborhood, a concerned neighbor approached Kola, unable to hold back any longer. He had watched young Ademoyetv grow up in a home where love was scarce, where her father's disdain was evident to everyone. "Mr. Kola," the neighbor began, his voice steady but filled with disapproval, "the way you're treating your daughter, it's really unfair. How can she suffer so much in her own father's house? It's not right." Kola looked at him with a dismissive glare, brushing off the neighbor's concern. "Don't worry about that. She's my daughter, and I'll treat her however I see fit." The neighbor shook his head. "Karma is real, Mr. Kola. The way we treat others, especially our own children, has a way of coming back to us." But Kola remained unmoved, his voice cold and unapologetic. "She's my daughter. This is my house, and I have every right to decide how things are done." The neighbor sighed, realizing his words were falling on deaf ears. He glanced one last time at Ademoyetv, who was quietly watching from the shadows, her face a mixture of sadness and acceptance. Though his heart ached for the girl, he knew that only time could reveal the consequences of Kola's cruelty. Few years passed, and Ademoyetv still remained a maid in her father's house. She became a quiet, resilient young girl, excelling in her studies despite her hardships. Ademoyetv, meanwhile, focused on leisure and friends, indifferent to learning. When their senior secondary final exams approached, Ademoyetv studied late into the night, while Ademoyetv partied without a care. When the results came, Ademoyetv had excelled, while Ademoyetv had failed. But Kola bribed officials to swap their scores, awarding Ademoyetv with her achievements and condemning Ademoyetv to stay home. Heartbroken but powerless, Ademoyetv continued her role as her family's servant. However, amidst the harsh treatment and loneliness, Ademoyetv found a small comfort in food. Whenever she felt the weight of her father's resentment or her brother's cruelty, she would retreat to the kitchen and quietly eat whatever she could find. Food became her solace, a small source of warmth in an otherwise cold world. Over time, as she sought refuge in eating, Aderonk's figure began to change and she added weight. Though she bore the physical burden of her sorrow, it was the only comfort she had in a home that offered her so little. A few years later, Adegun returned home after graduating from university, though his grades were poor, a reflection of his carefree lifestyle and lack of focus. Still, Kola welcomed him with open arms, pride in his eyes as he embraced his son, his voice booming with joy. "Aderonk," he shouted, his tone sharp and unforgiving. "How many times must I call you, you fat cow? Can't you see your brother is back? All you know how to do is eat like a glutton. Now, get to the kitchen and prepare something delicious for him." Aderonk's heart sank as she hurried to the kitchen, her shoulders drooping under the weight of his words. Just as she turned to leave, Adegun added with a mocking grin, "Be fast about it, ugly cow." He laughed as he watched her walk away, his taunts echoing in her mind. Aderonk swallowed back tears, sadness filling her as she felt, once again, like an outsider in her own home. Despite all the sacrifices and hardships she had endured, she was still nothing more than a servant in their eyes. With a heavy heart, she prepared a meal, trying her best to silence the hurt that had become all too familiar. A few months later, Adegun managed to secure a well-paying job, thanks to his father's connections and some discreet bribery. Kola was proud, seeing this as a mark of his family's success, even if Adegun's grades hadn't reflected it. With his newfound position, Adegun regularly invited friends over to flaunt his wealth and social standing. Whenever they came around, he would introduce Aderonk, not as his twin sister, but as the maid, a label that stung each time she heard it. One evening, as Aderonk was preparing food in the kitchen for her brother and his friends, one of Adegun's friends slipped quietly into the kitchen, his presence unexpected and unsettling. Before she realized what was happening, he reached out and touched her inappropriately. Shocked and horrified, she pulled away and shouted at him. But he only smirked, mocking her. "Come on, you should be grateful I'm even interested," he sneered. "You're just a maid. Why make such a fuss?" He laughed, leaving her feeling humiliated and shaken. That evening, Aderonk summoned the courage to tell her father and brother what had happened, hoping for some understanding or protection. But as she recounted the incident, they looked at her with disdain. "Why would anyone touch you?" Adegun scoffed, brushing off her words. "Who'd be attracted to someone like you?" Kola sneered, his expression cold. "Lies and attention-seeking. Who would go near an ugly girl like you?" Their words crushed her, and with a heavy heart, she left the room and retreated to her own, tears streaming down her face. She had nowhere to turn, no one to trust, and no one who cared. Alone in her room, she wondered how much more of this humiliation she could endure. The question weighed on her, and she silently prayed for strength to keep going through a life that seemed determined to break her. One day, Adegun returned home with a wealthy fiancé, planning a grand wedding. Aderonk was banned from attending, dismissed as an embarrassment to the family. Her father's words cut deep, "Stay here and eat as you always do. You're not needed." Not long after, Adegun's wife, Bimp, gave birth to a baby. Adegun quickly shared the good news with his father, Kola, who was overjoyed. "That's my son," Kola exclaimed, pride swelling in his voice. Then Adegun made a suggestion that left Kola nodding in approval. "Since Aderonk has nothing worthwhile going for her, and no one would ever marry her with that ugly, fat shape, why don't we have her come live with us?" Adegun proposed. "Instead of her eating like a glutton at home, she could help my wife with the chores. Bimp is too classy to be doing dirty work." "You're absolutely right, my son," Kola agreed without hesitation. "She's not useful here. I'll send her to you right away." Later that evening, Kola summoned Aderonk and informed her of her new duty at her brother's house. "Pack your things. You're going to live with Adegun and help his wife." "Papa, I don't want to go," Aderonk pleaded. but Kola's face hardened as he cut her off. "Who are you to refuse my order? You have nothing good coming your way. You're useless," he barked. "Now go and be of some help to your brother. All you do is eat. You're a glutton." Reluctantly, Aderonk packed her belongings and left for Adegun's house. Upon her arrival, Adegun wasted no time setting the rules. "You'll wake up every day at 3 a.m., clean the house, do all the chores, and take care of the baby," he ordered. Aderonk felt her heart sink. This is too much. Waking up at 3 a.m.? Why are you doing this? Do you have a choice?" Adegun retorted with a sneer. "What's difficult about waking up early and cleaning? Isn't that what you're good at? Don't expect my sophisticated wife to do such dirty work. She's a speck." Thimp, who had been listening, smiled smugly, standing like a queen beside her husband. With no other option, Aderonk resigned herself to the harsh routine. Every morning, she rose at 3 a.m., scrubbing floors, washing clothes, cooking, and caring for her brother's baby. Thimp, who delighted in Aderonk's labor, would often leave large piles of laundry. "Wash all these clothes and take care of my baby. I'm going shopping with my friends," she would say bluntly, handing Aderonk the baby and walking out. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Aderonk worked from dawn to dusk, and when she was finally done, she would eat to fill the void left by her family's cruelty. The meals offered her a brief escape from her grueling reality, though the sadness never truly lifted. One evening, Thimp informed Aderonk that her older brother Sigyn would be visiting and staying with them for a while. She looked at Aderonk sternly and warned, "You better be in your best behavior. Make sure you treat him well." The next day, Sigyn arrived. He warmly greeted Bimp and Adegun, but as soon as he laid eyes on Aderonk, an unsettling look crossed his face. His gaze lingered on her, and he licked his lips, making Aderonk feel uncomfortable, but she knew better than to speak up, for in this house, her words would carry no weight. A few days later, when he was sure no one was home, Sigyn sneaked into Aderonk's room and forced himself on her. When he was done, he sneered, "No one will believe you. You're just a maid." Then, without a trace of remorse, he walked away, leaving Aderonk devastated, and she sat there, tears streaming down her face, knowing that if she told her twin brother or his wife, they would never believe her. The horrifying violation soon became a regular occurrence. Each time the Hyatt was empty, Sigyn would find his way to her room. Taking advantage of her helplessness, Aderonk bore the pain and silence, carrying on with her chores and finding comfort in the meals she prepared for herself. One night, however, when Sigyn tried to sneak into her room once again, Aderonk could bear it no knowing that Adegun and Bimp were home. She gathered the last of her courage and screamed as loud as she could. Her cries jolted her twin brother and his wife from sleep, and they rushed into her room. "What's going on here?" Adegun demanded, his face twisted in anger. Through tears, Adegun choked out, "He's been forcing himself on me whenever you are not home. I can't keep silence anymore." Sigyn immediately denied it, his face feigning shock and disgust. "Me with her? God forbid. She's been the one seducing me, trying to throw herself at me. Look at her, she's not even my type. Fat and ugly, who would want her?" Aderonk's heart shattered as she tried to defend herself. "Please believe me. I would never do any of those things." "He's lying," she pleaded, but Bim's face turned cold. "I knew you were lying. How dare you accuse my brother of such a thing? Do you think he'd stoop so low to be with someone like you?" Bimp sneered. "Look at yourself. No man on earth would want anything to do with you." Adegun shook his head in disgust. "I knew you were always a problem. That's why Papa and I despise you. So now you're a prostitute, seducing men in our home. You are a disgrace. All you do is eat and cause trouble." Adegun's face hardened. "Before you bring bad luck into this family, pack your things and leave. Now you're nothing but a pig." Aderonk fell on her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't throw me out tonight. I have nowhere to go. I'm begging you, please, please." But her cries fell on deaf ears. Her brother and his wife showed no mercy as they forced her out, leaving her stranded and alone in the cold night. As Aderonk wandered into the dark street, she felt profound emptiness settled within. She had lost her home, her family, and her dignity. Aderonk began to walk, unsure where to go or what to do. Fear gnawed at her as she wandered aimlessly into the dark. Meanwhile, Adegan called their father, Kola, to inform him of the situation. "I knew the girl was bad luck," Kola scoffed over the phone. "You did the right thing throwing her out. She's useless." As Aderonk walked, exhausted and disheartened, a car pulled up beside her. The driver, a kind-looking man named Ademoyetv, noticed her weary expression and stopped. "Hello," he greeted, concern etched on his face. "Where are you going at this hour?" "It's late and dangerous." Aderonk looked at him with uncertainty. "I was thrown out of my brother's house. I don't have anywhere to go." Ayetun's heart softened. "Come on, let me give you a ride." "It's not safe for you to be out here." Aderonk hesitated. "I can't just get into a stranger's car. What if you're dangerous?" Ayatun smiled gently. "I understand, but please, don't worry. I won't hurt you. I promise." After a moment's pause, Aderonk reluctantly agreed, climbing into the car. Ayatun drove her to his large, beautiful home, where Aderonk's eyes widened in amazement. "Welcome to my humble abode," he said warmly. Just then, two friendly, chubby ladies appeared and greeted her warmly. They were Ayatun's sisters, Balaji and Palumi, and they welcomed her with open arms. Ayatun told Aderonk she was welcome to stay as long as she needed. His sisters led her to a cozy room where she could rest and refresh herself. The next morning, Ayatun asked Aderonk about her past, curious to understand what had led her to be abandoned by her own family. Aderonk shared her heartbreaking story, how her father blamed her for her mother's death, how she was treated like a servant by her own brother and assaulted by others, shedding tears as she relived the pain. Ayatun listened with deep compassion, assuring her that she was safe and that her life would be different now. From that day forward, Aderonk experienced the love she had longed for. Ayatun's sisters, Balaji and Palumi, became like true sisters to her. They took her on shopping trips, made her laugh, and treated her like family. For the first time in her 26 years, Aderonk felt the warmth of a family who loved her unconditionally. One afternoon, Ayatun gently asked Aderonk about her dreams. She revealed that she had always wanted to study human resources management. Moved by her ambition, Ayatun promised to sponsor her education. With his support, she took the entrance exam, and soon, she was accepted into university. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she thanked Ayatun, who had become her greatest supporter. As time passed, Ayatun's feelings for Aderonk deepened. Though he admired her immensely, he kept his love private, waiting for her to finish her studies. For years later, Aderonk graduated with distinction. Her new family celebrated with her, and Ayatun felt his heart swell with pride and admiration. One evening, Ayatun gathered his courage and confessed his feelings. "Aderonk," he began, "I've fallen in love with you. I know you might have doubts, but you're everything I've ever wanted. Please, give me a chance." Aderonk hesitated. "But look at me. I'm not what most men would want." Ayatun took her hands. "To me, you're perfect. You're my speck. I promise to love and cherish you." Smiling through her tears, Aderonk agreed. They married in a grand celebration, surrounded by friends and family, and Aderonk finally experienced the happiness and love she deserved. One day, Ayatun told Aderonk that some people had come to see her and asked her to keep calm. Curious, she went to meet them, and to her shock, saw her father and twin brother looking worn and broken. She turned to Ayatun, anger flaring in her eyes. "What are they doing here?" Kola and Adegan knelt before her, pleading for forgiveness. Aderonk listened in silence, her past grievances flooding back. They begged for forgiveness, asking for her help now that they had no one else to turn to. Kola explained that Adegan had lost his wife and child in a plane crash, that his job was gone, and that his wife's wealthy family had abandoned him. They were now penniless, hoping for her mercy. Aderonk took a deep breath, feeling the years of pain and isolation. Her voice was icy. So, now that you've lost everything, you remember the twin sister you threw away? She shook her head, incredulous. You once told me I was worthless. You taught me I was unlovable. But I found love and a family who showed me kindness. You really think I'll welcome you with open arms after everything? You must be out of your minds. She reached into her purse and pulled out a check for $5 million. Take this and leave. This is the last time I ever want to see either of you near my family. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving behind the family that had once discarded her, ready to fully embrace the love and happiness she had found in her new life. And the embrace of her new family, she found healing, love, and the life she had always deserved.
Thank you, lovelies, for watching this exciting tale. What lessons did you learn from this tale? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on my latest story. Bye for now.